Hello, I'm Tom Benton. I'm a statistician at Cambridge Assessment. I want to tell you about some work we've been doing comparing PISA and GCSE. Now, both these tests are taken by Year 11 students, aged 15 or 16, but they're a little different. GCSEs are used to judge students. How well have they learnt what they've been taught in schools? PISA is used to judge the education system. How good are our students compared to others around the world? Now, to find how much these two were measuring the same things, we got an anonymised data set of people who had done both tests and compared their performance on the two assessments. Here's what we found. So the first thing, PISA maths is no more predictive of how people do in GCSE than Key Stage 2 is. Key Stage 2 taken 5 years before GCSE, PISA only 6 months. This is how I show it. So this is a plot here of marks on the Key Stage 2 test, which have been rescaled to a normal distribution, but it's just Key Stage 2 marks against the grade people get in GCSE maths. And you can see here there's a decent relationship, but still plenty of variation in the grades people get, even with the same Key Stage 2 score. And we can summarise that relationship with correlation of 0.74. Now, if I flip this over, we look at the same thing, but now we're looking at PISA scores against GCSE grades. What we see, this chart looks nearly the same, correlation just slightly higher, 0.78. This is a bit of a surprise, given PISA tests are much closer in time to GCSE than Key Stage 2 is. And it indicates that what PISA measures is somewhat different to what GCSE maths measures. This could be to do with the content of the tests, which you can certainly see if you look at examples of the PISA questions. Could also be computerized format or motivation. Whatever it is, it's measuring something a little bit different. Second finding I'm going to share, that PISA reading measures something quite different to GCSE English. In the previous slide, we saw relationship between PISA maths and GCSE maths, correlation of 0.78. What I've got here is the correlation between PISA reading, PISA collaborative problem solving, and a bunch of GCSE subjects. Lots more results like this are in the full report. But what I want to focus on for the moment is this correlation with GCSE English, 0.68. Lower than between PISA maths, GCSE maths, and also lower than the correlation between PISA reading and GCSE Science. In other words, PISA reading is definitely measuring something quite different to GCSE English. Third thing in this same table is about how PISA collaborative problem solving doesn't really relate to any GCSE at all. I've put all these correlations in blue, indicating they're a bit lower. None of them are really particularly high. This is interesting because collaborative problem solving is the domain, the PISA domain, where England performed best relative to the OECD average, without it relating to any of the subjects that are taught in school. Just to illustrate that a bit further, here's a plot of PISA collaborative problem solving scores against GCSE English grades. And you can see this very wide spread of performance in collaborative problem solving, even with people with the same English grade. You could do this similar kind of chart for any GCSE subject along there, indicating there are people who can be very good at this idea of collaborative problem solving who don't show up as performing particularly well in any GCSEs. Fourth thing, people who study art at GCSE, or indeed art subjects in general, are not penalised by the PISA tests. So this chart again shows GCSE maths against PISA maths, but we've just zoomed in. So for each grade, GCSE, we're just showing the mean achievement in PISA for that GCSE maths grade. And I've split that into a red line, people who did art at GCSE, who studied it, and a blue line, people who didn't study art at GCSE. And what we see here is that PISA maths, given equal performance in GCSE maths, PISA maths doesn't penalise people who chose to study art or art subjects. Now there is a big caveat to this, which brings us to the final and fifth finding. Studying sciences, separate sciences, all three at GCSE does appear to be associated with much stronger performance in PISA. So this is the same chart again, only looking at the top 3 maths grades, because that's where most of the people who study separate sciences are, and comparing performance of those who did 3 sciences, in blue, biology, physics and chemistry, against people who did combined science, in red. Now, what we've got here in GCSE grade is we've got people who are equally good at maths in terms of the maths that counts. They're GCSE, they're equally good here. But when they are measured by PISA, people who have studied 3 sciences do considerably better than people who have studied combined science. This is quite a big gap. This is about the same size as the difference between England and Korea in terms of PISA performance. Really, all these results come down to 2 conclusions. Firstly, PISA measures something different to GCSEs. We can't assume that the skills it does assess act as a proxy for telling us how good our students are at all the things it doesn't. Secondly, PISA performance is affected by subject choices. In other words, PISA performance is a product of what you learn, not just how well you learn it. Understanding this is vital to interpretation. We would never choose a curriculum for pupils purely to boost our PISA ranking. Lots more details on this research in the report on our website. There's modelling and caveats, lots more GCSE subjects considered. If you want to look at that or any of our other research, go to cambridgeassessment.org.uk/our research.